Hello guys, and welcome back to another Tweaker Man video. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to make one of these. A pure silver ultra high-end USB cable A to B. So this effectively will go from my PC there into my DAC, which is here. So let's head out to the workshop and I'll show you how to make one. So here on the bench are all the products we need to make this USB cable. So if you pan down, we can show you. So our core material is a 0.4 of a millimeter pure silver wire. Okay, we need our USB A and USB B plugs. These are nice gold plated ones we've got here. This here is a Teflon tube, which is 1.5 of a millimeter on the outer diameter, and in the center is 0.5. Okay, so we can thread our pure silver wire through it easy. We also need some silver plated copper braid. This braid is 5mm in the center. We also need some aluminium foil tape, some nylon braid, some heat shrink. We're using some black heat shrink there, array of tools, and also we need some deoxit, because what we do is we cover the wire in deoxit before we put it into the Teflon tube. We also need a soldering iron. Okay, we have our diagram here, which I've printed out for you guys so you can see it really well. And what I'll do is I'll stick a link up to this and you'll be able to see that. And this is exactly the way you wire the USB plugs. So I think we'll get into this video and start producing it for you. Right, okay. We've already made up 3 of our conductors here. And we've threaded the silver wire through the Teflon tube. Now what we've done is we've marked each end of each tube so we know exactly what's what, because obviously this is clear and they need to be coloured really, but we're not doing that. We're just going to mark each end of them so we know that one's red, one's white, one's black and one's green. So because we've made those 3 up already, we'll put those over there. And now I'm going to show you how to make up this conductor. What effectively this does is it speeds up this video, otherwise it takes forever. So now I'm just going to put our conductor onto this piece of material here, and we're just going to cover it in deoxit. And now I'm just going to thread all that through the deoxit. Like so. And now I'm going to thread all this through this Teflon tube here. Now there's a tiny little hole in the end, so there we go, it's gone straight in there. Now the idea of the deoxit as well is it stops the silver from tarnishing when I'm touching it with my fingers as well, and it makes the wire glide through the tube really easy. So I've cut these wires around about 1m200. Okay, we need it there. Now this is the exact thing you don't want to do. You don't want to bend the conductor. Okay, you want to keep it nice and straight. You don't want any kinks happening in there, because it will affect the flow. It will get stuck at one point. So just pull the wire out a bit. There we go. Right, so that's sticking out both ends now, so that's perfect. Right, so now what we need to do is we need to get our 4 conductors together, and we're going to twist these in a twisted geometry, a bit like an umbilical cord. So we need to get our 3 4 conductors in place. There we go. Right, so now what we're going to be doing is twisting them together. Now we're going to put it in a drill to twist it, but first of all we need to just put a bit of tape over the end of it to stop it from coming apart. Now you've got to make sure you get all the ends of these all in exactly the same length. So if you can see that there, you've got 1, 2, 3. That's it. So that one's got to come up a bit more. There we go. Right, okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a piece of insulation tape to start with to hold this together while we twist it. Then we're going to cover it in some PTFE tape. Okay, we'll put that down for a minute while we cut this. You'll also need a pair of scissors as well for this job. So we're going to put our piece of thing on there while we get this sorted out again. So we want to offer this up and get these in exactly the right place. It is very fiddly, this job. You're working with very fine conductors. There we go. Right, so we're just going to wrap a piece of tape around here to start with. There we go. Just chop that back with the scissors. Right, okay. So now some of these strands are a bit long at the moment now. Check both ends just to make sure. So what we're going to do is just chop some of these strands down a little bit because we've got to get it inside a drill. So we'll just take some scissors and chop them down. Now we're going to just wrap a piece of PTFE tape around the conductors at the end because we don't really want to damage any of the material. Which we're going to pull off afterwards, but it's just while we get it into the chuck of the drill, we don't want to damage the conductors there. There we go, take that off of there. So you're also going to need a drill. This is just a small drill. Right, so we'll get our drill, open the chuck up on it a bit. We just want to be able to feed that into the chuck. There we go. Now, because this is this Teflon tube, it's not just like the wire where if you was to twist the wire, it will twist together lovely. This tends to, because it's very slippery and it don't want to twist that well. So so this is the tricky bit. So all I'm going to do now is just hold the drill in my hand there. And while we twisting this together, see, there you go, see, it starts to want to unravel itself. We're twisting this together because it helps to reduce any radio frequency information or electrostatic magnetic interference from getting into the cable itself. There we go. So you have to just put it through your fingers. You may need 2 people to help you do this. Another person, I should say. So, there we go. So now it's going to start to try and unravel at this end again. So what we're going to be doing is just putting another piece of tape on there. Just to hold the twist in place while we cover it in PTFE tape. Now it doesn't matter if it's not twisted right to the very end because we can just twist that last bit by hand as we come up to it. So what we're going to do is just stick a piece of tape over that around there. Now that's going to help it to to not unravel. There we go. Right, so that's that. And now all we've got to do now is we need to take this out of the drill. So undo the chuck there. You can keep that on the end for a bit if you want. You don't really need to remove that at this point. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this soldering iron over because it's in the way there for the moment. Right, so the next part of this is our aluminium foil tape. We've just got to cover this first in PTFE tape. So you can see there, see it's unravelled at that end a little bit, so we might need to fit that back into the plug a minute, into the chuck, and then just make it a bit more tighter. There we go. See that there? Look, that's the sort of tightness we want. As you come down the end there. Well, that's perfect. That's absolutely stunning. That is, that twist. As we get over to here, this is why you probably will need someone else helping you to do this, because you really want to keep it in place. Right, okay, so we're up to the end there now. So now it's going to want to twist back on itself again, because that's what it does. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start putting our PTFE tape around this now. So we want to work it back a bit. It doesn't matter if we go to the end, we can do the end part a bit later once we get our PTFE tape around here. So we want to just start our PTFE tape off slowly, like that. What this does is the idea of this PTFE tape is it helps to keep the twist in place, because otherwise, as I say, it will just unravel. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to twist all this round here, and then I'll be back in a second, and then we can show you how to do the next stage of this. Right, so we've got this in a drill now, and we're just letting the PTFE tape run through my fingers as we thread it up the cable. This is so much quicker to do it like this. Right, so I've taken it off the drill now, and we're just going to release this piece of insulation tape there. Can find the end of it. Can't find where the end of that is. Gonna have to chop it off with some scissors there. Get underneath it a bit. So I've cut off the piece of insulation tape. So we've taken it up to here now. So we've hand twisted that last bit together. We're just gonna go round here and then come back on ourselves a bit there, and then just chop that off. Now we've got the same thing going on the other end now. We need to just take this piece of insulation tape off. So we've just got a blade now just to do it. Try not to score anything, just there we go. Let's just rip off now, hopefully. Right, that's going to come off nicely. Right, so now we're just going to need to twist this end back by hand. Put that up onto there. And now we're just going to cover that twist in the last bit of PTFE tape, just to what this does is this also gives a slight cushion to the aluminium foil tape that's going on to here. as well. Right, just keep that down there and just float it through your fingers. As you get up to there, I'm going to twist it a bit more there. This does have a tendency, this this Teflon tube, to want to keep springing back. Right, so get up to about there, come back on ourselves a little bit there and chop that off. So there you go, that's looking very nice now. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take our aluminium foil tape and we're going to lay it dead flat on the bench here. Move a few bits over so we get move the drill out of the way, we don't need that now for the minute. Right, so we want to peel back the backing on this because this is a sticky back. If you can get it without the sticky back on it, it's probably best too, but so we're going to pull back the aluminium foil tape a little bit. Keep it pulled back there, and then we're going to put the cable onto here. It's very sticky. Just going to stick it on there like that. Okay, and just run the cable along. And the reason why I haven't pulled it all back totally is because we don't really want it to get messy. It gets messy because it's sticky. It gets messy, so what we want to do is we want to just pull that along there and just stick it on. There we go. So this is going to make an absolutely fabulous USB cable. For all you cable deniers out there, I challenge you to make one of these and to listen, and I swear you'll totally hear a difference between this and a cheaper throwaway cable, or any of the mainstream cables that they make that, in my opinion, are not that great for the amount of money they're charging you for them. And this is a fraction of the cost of those expensive cables, and this will beat the performance of those hands down. Right, so we're just going to take that to the end there now, pull that back off a little bit. As you can see, this is very fiddly when it's sticky like this, so just bear with it. Take your time on it, there's no rush. Right, so now what we've got to do is just cut that back a bit now, the aluminium foil tape, just chop that last bit off there because we don't want that on there. Right, now this is quite tricky now, so you just need to take the foil tape now, you want to just pull that round onto the cable, just to fold it back over slightly. You want to try to make this as neat as possible as it goes up the cable. I mean, obviously these are made by machine, a lot of these cables, well, nearly all of them. So this is a real treat to make one by hand. There we go. Right, so the next thing is to roll this over slowly as you go down the cable. Just roll it over very slowly. Keep going as you go down. It's a bit like rolling a cigarette, one of those hand rolled tobacco cigarettes. But obviously one of those Rizzlers or whatever you call them. I'm not a smoker, so I'm not really familiar with these things, but they're not sticky like this. So that's why you have to take your time on this and really go along with it. There, that bit there, the back there is folded over, so I'm going to pull that back. So now we're going to just work our way back again that way, slowly taking it round. The only beauty of making one of these is you're only making one, unlike your analog interconnects and your speaker cable where you've got to make two. This is a lot less time consuming because you're only producing one of them. There we go. So as we come up to that last bit, we're going to work our way back and just fold the last bit over. There we go. Now just go around and just mould it in with your fingers, just to push it down, make sure it's all stuck down. So this is our first layer of shielding. Okay. Now the reason why I've left that piece on the end there is because we want to thread all this now through our silver plated braid. Now for any reason that you would lose some of these letters on the end of each conductor, it doesn't matter, you can use a multimeter just to check each one. So we're going to just put out, this is our, obviously you've seen this before, but we're going to put this over here for the minute. Now what we're going to do is open up our silver plated braid. Okay, there's another piece of the PTFE tube in there, the spare bit that was left over. So this braid has got a tube through there, so we're just going to unthreadle that tube, take that tube off, put that on the floor. Right, so now this is, we're going to just start threading this through. Okay, so because we've kept that piece of PTFE tape on the end there, it stops the conductors from getting all twiddled up. Right, okay, so we're going to push that to there. We're going to end that there. So basically, we're going to, when it comes to your plug at the end, that is just going to stop there. So that gets crimped down over with this piece. Okay, so none of this braid needs to get terminated off onto our plug. Right, okay. So let's pull that back nice and tight, and now we'll be able to feel there how far our wire goes up to. So we're going to cut that back just there. There we go. Right, okay, so I'm going to put this other piece, keep all these old bits because all the offcuts, because you never know, you might want to make some jumper leads or all sorts of stuff. Right, let's put that down there. Right, so now what we need to do is we need to undo this now. Just need to pull this back because we've got to make this smaller, so you just need to tease this open gradually. You can use a little blade like this or a small screwdriver just to gradually unravel it. So we've unravelled it down to there, so we're just going to chop it off with our scissors there. So that's where our PTFE tape, just up to our PTFE tape there. Right, okay, so we've got two right, so this now, what we're going to be doing now is we're going to start putting our PTFE tape around this, and we'll stick it back in the chuck of the drill and move it along. So we'll start doing that now with our PTFE tape. So this braid is going to want to pull back as well, this nylon, this silver plated braid, because it naturally wants to do that all the time as well. So what you need to do is really pull it tight, get it down the other end there as tight as you can, and then we're going to put just a bit of insulation tape around it just to keep it in place, because it's going to want to pull back. We can actually leave this piece of insulation tape on it this time as it goes to the bottom. So what you need to do is just to work it really tight like that, right along till it gets to the bottom there. And now I'm just going to put a piece of tape on there over the end there, just to keep it in place for the minute. We are actually going to take that off after, because we need to expose the end of that so the plug goes into it. Right, okay, so now what we're going to do, we're going to put this back into the drill again at this end. So bring our drill back again. Right, I'm going to get my colleague to hold this drill now like that while we twist it. There we go. That's so much quicker. Right, so as we get down to the end here, we just want to have a little bit of the braid exposed. We don't want to take the braid, we don't want to go too far to the end, because we want to crimp the braid into the plug. So leave a piece about that much at the end. And now we're going to just start twisting it back again, because you want 2 layers of this PTFE tape, because we don't really want any of the braid to start getting oxidize. So let's just work our way back down there. You can do it by hand, it's quite quick as well. So for those of you that don't want to use a drill, we can just do it by hand, it's quite quick. Just keep going. Right, we're coming to the end here now. So if you can see there, I'd already gone over the end there, so I need to cut that back a little bit. So we'll just come back on ourselves a bit and then finish it off there, around about there. Chop it with your scissors. Now the nylon braid, it doesn't have to be earthed at both ends. You can leave one end open, but I quite like to earth it at both ends. So we'll just pull that back, that PTFE tape a bit, just to expose a bit of the braid. Right, so the cable has now had 2 layers of PTFE tape over it. So what we need to do now is we need to cover that in a nylon braid. So what I'm going to do now, clear all that rubbish off the bench. Don't want any bits of copper braid sticking in anything. Right, so this is our nylon braid that we've got here. It's just a black one. So we're just going to push this through, thread all that through there. There we go. It gives you quite a striking effect. It's got black with white behind it. Not that we're bothered about, obviously, looks, because this channel is only about sound quality. So we've got that down to there. So what we want to do is we're just going to use a bit of insulation tape for this next bit, just to hold the nylon braid in place. We're going to put some heat shrink over it after, but while we're I just want to wrap a piece around there nice and tight. There we go, and just snip it off with the scissors again. It just holds that in place nice and neatly like that. And then we're just going to spread all that back down the other end, and now you can see through here now, you see, so you'll know where you want to chop the nylon braid off with. So with the, not with the tip of the soldering iron, with the back part of the tip, we want to just touch it round slightly, just to melt it away. This part is can get a bit hot, so just there you go. That's perfect. Now we'll just do the same with this end. We'll just put a piece of insulation tape over there, just keeps it nice and neat. Right, just take that off of there. Right, so now that is a fully insulated cable now. 2 layers of a fully shielded cable now. 2 layers of shield, plus the conductors have been twisted in a twisted geometry, 4 conductors. So all we've got to do now is to start terminating this cable now. Okay, now we've got our cable already made up. The whole thing's made up totally. All we've got to do is trim this end down. But first of all, we're going to terminate this end. Okay, so we're going to terminate this end with our A connector, USB A connector, which is that's the inside of it. Okay, so these are our terminals that we need to solder to. So if you look at this is the diagram here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and vice versa with the USB-B. So what I've done before is I said I marked all these, so I know exactly what one goes where. So what we're going to do now is each time we solder one, we're going to just flip this off, this bit of aluminium foil tape I put on there, because we don't really want that on there really, because it's going to affect it. So we're just going to go down here and solder that there. Right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to put a tiny little bit of solder onto the plug there. There we go, just a tiny bit there. Okay, and just load up the soldering iron again there. And this is our number 1. So we're going to take that off there, and this piece here is the number 1 terminal. Okay, so we're going to, so what I'm going to do first, actually before I do that, I'm going to show you something before we solder that on with our multimeter. So if you lose one of the pieces off of there, you will know that you'll know what's what. So at this end, okay, we've got number 1, which is this one here. Okay, so what we need to do is we need just to check that that one is number 1. So we're going to just put our meter onto here, and you'll see whether this goes up, whether the lights, whether the numbers go up. So we'll hold that there like that, and we'll hold that on there. Okay, so they don't go up on that one. So we go down to that one. There you go. So we know that is number 1, that, because it's moving, you see. Right, okay, so, and you can do that just to check each terminal. Right, so we're just going to take that out. We're going to clean that again, put a bit more solder on the end of the tip there. Remembering this is very, very, very fine, this this cable. The conductors 0.4, very, very, very fine conductors. And so let's just go from there, and right, that's one soldered on, just beautiful. There we go. So we want to do the same to each one. So our next one is going to be number 2, which is this one. So we want to flip that off. Okay, and then we're going to load that up and put another piece of solder. Now you might want to just hold that down. I mean, if you've got an old USB port that you can put your USB into, That would be ultimately the best way to do it, because you're going to be holding it in place while you solder it. But we haven't got one of those, so, or we probably have somewhere, but I can do it this way extremely easy. So we're just going to put a little bit of solder back onto there again. That's it, that's gone in there, beautiful. Bit on there, and now we've got to press our, get the wire lined up a bit better. Press that down like so. There we go. Alright, that's gone on lovely as well. So now we're up to number 3, which is number 3 there. That's on there, right? Yep, that's perfect. Looked like it'd come away, but it hasn't. Just double check that. It's all right. Yep, that's perfect. Right. Again, load it up. Tiny little bit on the. That's it. Flow that on there. Now we need to take that off to number 3. Remembering you don't want any of these little terminals to touch, because that will just as soon as you get any solder touching, that'll arc out onto each conductor. So let's take that to there. Perfect. Right, let's just double check that close up, that nothing's touching there. You can see that there. They're all separated nice and neatly. So we've just got to do the last piece here now. So this here is going to come round to the side there and up onto there. So again, we want to just flow a little bit on there. Put the scissors there just to hold it in place again. Very tiny soldering this is. There we go. Put that back in there just for a second while I get that into place. Hold that into place. You can actually hold it in place with something like a screwdriver, or just while we're going to sort that out, get that up. Very fiddly, as I say, these things. Something that you're going to have to just persevere with. So that one's playing up slightly, so I'm going to just bring it up and bend it over slightly like that. There we go. We'll get it into place there. And now we are going to moved again. It's actually gone in there. That's it. Move that over slightly. Right, hang on. So look at that. I don't like that. That's popped off there. As I say, these are very small conductors, so they can be quite fiddly to solder. Even for someone as experienced as me, it's just a very tiny bit of solder you need on there. Get that over onto there. That's it. Right, that's it. Right, so that's perfect. Look at that. That's soldered on absolutely beautiful. So what we're going to do now is just going to put a bit of deoxit on that, just onto here. Okay, leave it for a second. and give it a second layer. Right, and then we're just going to clean that off with a bit of cloth, just to right, so that's on there. So now we've got to do is to get our, put it into our plug there. Look at that, it's going to go in lovely, that is. That's absolutely perfect. So we want to pull our braid back a little bit there, because we're going to crimp it up with this piece. So this piece now goes on top, which slides in between there. Okay. It's got some little, it's got a clip there that pops in. There we go, look, it's popped in lovely. There we go, look at that. And now all we've got to do is to crimp this up with a pair of pliers. So we've got some bent nose pliers here. You can see that now. I'll clamp that round like that. Now you can solder this piece on if you wanted as well, but I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to pull it round. There we go. Look at that, lovely job. There's our first plug soldered on. So what we need to do now is we need to put our heat shrink over the top. So I'm going to use a red heat shrink here. We want to take the heat shrink up to about there, and then we're going to shrink that down. So this is our heat shrink gun here. Okay, so we're just going to plug this in over here. Now if you want to get really fancy, well, I could do this. I could make a wooden plug housing for it, but I'm not going to bother for this. I'm just going to show you how to do this with a heat shrink. So we'll hold our piece of heat shrink up there and just start shrinking it down. Tease it round the back. Don't hold the gun too close to the braid, otherwise it will just melt it. There we go, look at that, it's gorgeous. Done a really nice job of that. Right, so let's just put that down there for a minute. Bearing in mind that these guns get extremely hot, so you really want to put it somewhere where you're not going to be able to. So we've now soldered on our USB A plug. So now we've got to go to the other end, which is our USB B plug. So these are the parts here. Okay, this is the bit we need to solder, and that will slide into there. Okay, so this top piece here is 1, 2, and then underneath you've got 4 and 3. So looking at it this way, like so, that is number 1, that's number 2, number 4, and number 3. Right, so what we've got to do now is we need to trim back this cable now because it's got too big. Okay, so we've got our numbers on there, so we know. So this is number 1, right? So we want to take this off in a minute, but first of all, because this is way too big, if we can try to slide these down a bit, which is not wanting to do it, so we're going to pull that one off, and then we're just going to cut them down each time. So this is number 1, right? So you can use some wire snippers or just some scissors like this. I know I get a load of grief when I use scissors. People say, "Oh, you're using scissors," but scissors work fine. There's no hard and fast rule for this. Right, so now we're just going to use, now these are a pair of wire cutters, but because this is so thin, this wire, I generally just use a blade and just cut up. This being PTFE, this is quite soft. There we go. So we just pull that off there to expose the wire there. Okay, so now what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be soldering our number 1 to there, number 2, and so on. Okay, so we need to do exactly the same thing again. we're going to just well, let's just double check before we go any further. Let's just double check, because you don't want to mess up. So you need to make sure that that's about right. See, look, we've got that dead in the right place for that. So let's now just add a bit of solder onto here. It's a very hot day today in the UK, so I'm sweating a bit in here, but there we go. We flowed a bit on there. Absolutely wonderful. Right, so let's pull that back. I'm going to hold. So now this is quite difficult, that bit there now. So ultimately, it would be best if you could hold this in place. So all I'm going to do is just put these scissors on top of it, just to hold it in place while I do it. Or actually, what I can do is just hold it there like that. I'm going to pull that up to make sure that's nice and straight. Nope, it's not gone on there. Right. Right, so what I'm going to do is just use a bit of a... So, we're putting a bit of tape over the plug now, so we can start soldering the other end on. So we're going to just flow another bit of solder onto the plug. Okay, we've indicated what goes where on the printout there on the screen. So we're going to solder this one, and we'll be back in a second. The audio will go quiet for a bit. It just helps me to concentrate and speed up the video. So the audio is going to go quiet now, and we'll finish this bit off. It's just a new process I'm trying out. So we're fitting the housing on now, the out part of the plug, crimping it up with our long nose pliers there, and all we've got to do now is just slip a piece of heat shrink over the end, just so we can get this beautiful cable finished. So now we're going to slip the heat shrink over and shrink it down with our heat gun. There we go, shrinking it down, remembering not to put the gun too close to the braid, the nylon braid, because it will just melt it, and we don't really want to do that. So so we're nearly there now, we're getting there. There we go, that is our cable finished. So here we go, that is our fabulous USB cable made. And all I want to say is thanks for watching another Tweaker Man video. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to give this video a like, and don't forget to press that notification bell. And thanks for watching, guys.